Welcome to the new chapter of our heptalogy, Mystery of the Greats, Nostradamus. What did he really see? A man once called a prophet, a scholar, a healer, and an outcast of his time. He saw what others could not. Or perhaps, he simply knew how to look deeper. For some, a visionary. For others, a madman who dared to play with fate. In his verses lived fear, faith, and hope. He did not write for us, and yet it is we who keep reading his words, searching for our own future within them. Close your eyes. Imagine an ancient room lit by candles, where a quill whispers of things that have not yet come to pass. This is the story of a man who tried to glimpse tomorrow and paid for it with the peace of his own mind. The name Nostradamus has become a symbol of mystery and prophecy. Yet behind this legendary image stood a real man, Michel de Nostradamus. He was born in the 16th century, a time when Europe lived on the edge of survival. The plague swept away entire towns, wars tore kingdoms apart, and faith and superstition ruled the minds of people. To his contemporaries, he was first and foremost a physician. He was known as a man who, in the midst of epidemics, did not hide behind walls, but walked straight into the homes of the sick. He used unusual methods: clean water, fresh air, herbal remedies. And this seemed like a miracle in a world where medicine rarely brought results. But there was more to him than medical courage. He was also an astrologer, able to spend long hours gazing at the night sky, searching for signs of destiny. His character was full of contradictions. With his patients, he was gentle and patient, but with rulers and church officials, he could be sharp, unafraid to speak against those whom others listened to with reverence. In everyday life, he remained a simple man. He enjoyed joking with peasants at the market about harvests or the weather. But at home, in the quiet of his study, his world was strict and orderly, filled with books, manuscripts, and alchemical treatises. He lived the life of a scholar where discipline and structure reigned. Yet he also had his small human joys. He appreciated good wine, cultivated jasmine and orange trees in his garden, along with dozens of medicinal herbs. It is said he took pride in offering friends fruit grown with his own hands. His memory astonished his contemporaries. He could quote ancient authors for hours and weave together knowledge from medicine, mathematics, astronomy, and history. This ability to see the world as a single system made him exceptional. To some, he was a wise man; to others, a strange figure, almost a magician. Even his appearance left a lasting impression: a thick, dark beard, a serious face, and dark eyes that people said carried something beyond human knowledge. His gaze inspired respect, but also unease. And perhaps the most important thing about him was a constant sense of anxiety that never left him. He lived in an age when each morning could be the last, when death entered homes without knocking. Perhaps it was for this reason that he so desperately tried to look into the future. His quatrains were not only prophecies, but also reflections of his own soul. A soul where fear and hope, doubt and faith were intertwined in the belief that the world had a hidden meaning, waiting to be uncovered. Michel de Nostradamus was born on December 14th, 1503, in the small town of Saint-Rémy-de-Provence in southern France. His family had Jewish roots. His paternal ancestors were physicians and scholars, but during the anti-Jewish persecutions of the late 15th century, they converted to Catholicism. It was at that time that the family name took its Latinized form, de Nostradamus. This decision allowed the family to keep its status and avoid persecution. His father, Jaume, or Jacques de Nostradamus, worked as a notary and was a respected figure in the town. His mother, Jeanne de Saint-Remy, came from a family of physicians. The person who had the greatest influence on young Michel was her father, Jean de Saint-Remy. He was a doctor and an astrologer, a man of unusual knowledge who had gathered a rich library in his home. He became Michel's first teacher, instructing him in Latin and Greek, as well as in medicine, astronomy, and mathematics. From an early age, the boy showed an extraordinary memory and curiosity. Contemporaries noted that he could memorize entire pages of text and quickly absorb knowledge from different fields. He eagerly read the works of Galen and Hippocrates, ancient philosophers, as well as books on astrology and alchemy preserved in his grandfather's collection. As a young man, he enrolled at the University of Avignon, where he studied the liberal arts, rhetoric, grammar, philosophy. But his studies were interrupted by the plague, which forced the university to close. Returning home, he continued his self-education. Later, he was admitted to the famous medical school at Montpellier, one of the most prestigious in Europe. There he studied under renowned professors and was introduced to the latest methods of medicine. University records suggest that Nostradamus often argued with his teachers. He insisted that medicine could not exist without the study of nature, and that astronomy should be considered part of medicine. For him, the movement of the stars and the health of man were inseparably linked. He saw the human body as part of the larger cosmos. It was also during these years that he developed a growing interest in astrology and the occult sciences. Rumors spread that he drew horoscopes for fellow students and even for some professors. A legend tells that one day he predicted to a classmate that he would one day become a bishop. Years later, the prophecy came true. Around this same period, he began making his first notes, quatrains that would later form part of the centuries. These early verses were not yet direct prophecies. Rather, they were philosophical reflections on time, fate, and human nature. But already, his distinctive style could be sensed. Deliberate obscurity, concealing meaning from the uninitiated, and allowing each reader to see their own interpretation. Thus, his youth was a time of formation. It was not only a period of learning the sciences, but also the first steps on the path that would make him famous for centuries. The union of medicine and astronomy, philosophy and poetry, strict knowledge, and the mystery of the future. In the first half of the 16th century, France was struck repeatedly by outbreaks of the plague. Entire cities were emptied, streets turned into silent graveyards. Most physicians hesitated to enter infected houses. The risk of death was too great. But Nostradamus, trained at the University of Montpellier, did exactly that. He rejected the common medical practices of the time, bloodletting, charms, and so-called magic powders. Instead, he emphasized fresh air, clean water, hygiene, and a light diet. He prepared herbal infusions and his famous rose pills, made from rose petals, myrrh, and other ingredients with antiseptic properties. For his contemporaries, these methods seemed extraordinary, almost revolutionary. Some said his remedies saved lives, though certainly not all. Despite his successes as a physician, the plague struck his own household. In the 1530s, while living in the town of Agen, His wife and 2 young children died of the disease. Nostradamus was away at the time treating others, and when he returned, his family was gone. The exact name of his first wife has not survived. Some sources suggest Henriette d'Ancos. Others remain silent, but the tragedy itself is undisputed. This loss marked a turning point in his life. He left Agen and spent years wandering across southern France and into Italy. Some say he was searching for new methods to fight the plague. Others believe it was during this period that he became deeply absorbed in astrology and began recording the quatrains that would later form the centuries. The death of his family reshaped him. Medicine was no longer only a science for him, but a battle against death itself, one in which he stood as both healer and witness to the inevitable. After years of wandering and personal tragedy, in 1547, Nostradamus finally settled in Salon de Provence and married a wealthy widow, Anne Ponsard-Jamel. Her family's household was well provided for, and this marriage gave him what he had lacked before: stability. They had 6 children together, 3 sons and 3 daughters. The eldest son, César, became a painter and historiographer. His paintings and writings preserved the likeness of his father and details of the family's daily life. Records suggest that it was César who drew the first known portrait of Nostradamus, with his thick beard and piercing gaze. A lesser-known fact: in Nostradamus's house in Salon, there was a small astrological tower, a room at the top of the house where he would observe the stars. He often spent nights there while his wife and children slept below. Today in Salon, this room is still shown as part of his preserved home and museum. Another remarkable detail: despite his fame, he tended his own garden. Contemporaries noted that he grew not only medicinal herbs, but also rare plants he brought back from his travels: jasmine, orange trees, and others. It was said that he delighted in offering his children sweet fruits grown with his own hands. The family lived a rather private life. His wife rarely accompanied him in public affairs, but managed the household and supported her husband's work. Local tradition holds that Anne was the keeper of his manuscripts, helping to organize his papers as he wrote the centuries. It is also interesting that travelers and envoys frequently visited their home. The children grew up in an atmosphere where dinner conversations might range not only over family matters, but also politics, medicine, and astrology. Thus, Nostradamus's second family became for him more than just a household. It was a space where the everyday mingled with the scholarly and the prophetic. The garden, the children, the manuscripts, and the stars all intertwined in one place. The great work of Nostradamus was the Prophecies, better known as the Centuries, a collection of enigmatic quatrains. He began writing them in the 1550s, already established in Salon de Provence. Unlike many scholars of his day, he did not write in Latin, but in a mixture of Old French, with Latin terms and unusual turns of phrase. This made the text deliberately obscure. Some historians believe he intentionally muddled the language to avoid persecution by the church. Prophecies that were too clear could easily be branded heresy. He divided his verses into groups of 100, hence the name Centuries. The first edition, published in 1555, contained only 3 such groups. Later, he expanded the collection to 10. Each quatrain read like a riddle. Rarely did he name dates or places directly. Instead, he used symbols, allegories, and layered references. a lesser-known detail. Nostradamus often wrote his quatrains at night in his so-called astrological tower. According to accounts, he would light candles, place a brass bowl of water before him, and gaze at the flickering reflections until images formed in his mind. Modern scholars see in this the practice of scrying, a meditative technique of divination. Another curious fact: in many of the surviving manuscripts, his verses are written in a seemingly random order, without clear sequence. Historians suggest this was intentional, so that even if the texts were seized, no one could easily make sense of them. His wife Anne played a role as well. Tradition says she helped him preserve and organize his papers when his health began to fail, ensuring that his writings would survive. Reception of the centuries was mixed even in his lifetime. Some saw in them proof of prophetic powers. Others dismissed them as poetic riddles or veiled political commentary. But the books quickly became popular. They were copied by hand, printed in new editions, and even smuggled abroad. Thus, the centuries were not merely a book of poems. They were a labyrinth of text designed to be read in countless ways. Perhaps this is why they have lived for 5 centuries. Every generation continues to find in them its own reflection of the world. Even during his lifetime, Nostradamus's quatrains became known at the French royal court. His most powerful patron was Catherine de' Medici, the wife of King Henry II. She was so struck by his writings that she summoned him to court and asked him to draw up horoscopes for her children. It is recorded that she relied on his predictions regarding the fate of France. The most famous case was his prophecy of King Henry II's death. In one quatrain he wrote of the young lion piercing the eye of the old lion on the field of battle. In 1559, Henry II died in a jousting tournament when the lance of his opponent, the young Gabriel de Montgomery, shattered and pierced his eye, driving splinters into his skull. The incident was immediately linked to Nostradamus's verse, cementing his reputation as a true prophet. His predictions were also connected to other events: the Great Fire of London in 1666, the French Revolution, the rise of Napoleon, and even Hitler. Modern historians debate whether these links are precise or the result of loose interpretations, but the fact remains. For centuries, people have seen real events mirrored in his words. During his lifetime, he influenced more than just Catherine de' Medici. Nobles, generals, and even clergy came to him for advice, despite the church's official mistrust of astrology. His home in Salon de Provence became a place visited by envoys, travelers, and simple townsfolk alike, all hoping for guidance about their future. One particularly striking case: the young Henry of Navarre, later King Henry IV of France, reportedly consulted Nostradamus. The astrologer predicted that he would one day wear the crown and live a long life. This too came true. Henry IV reigned for 2 decades and became one of France's most famous monarchs. After his death, his influence did not fade. His books were reprinted again and again, and in each era people found new meanings. In the 17th century, they were read as omens of the 30 Years' War, in the 18th and 19th as signs of revolution, and in the 20th as warnings of world wars. Thus, Nostradamus was not only a physician and poet, he was a man whose words were taken seriously by queens and kings, by soldiers and ordinary citizens alike, and whose influence stretched far beyond his own century. In 16th century France, Nostradamus was a controversial figure. Ordinary people called him the plague doctor and the star-wise sage. To some, he was a savior. To others, a man dangerously close to sorcery. His reputation constantly shifted between admiration and suspicion. He held no official political power, yet his influence was felt. Catherine de' Medici, Queen of France, trusted his horoscopes and invited him to court, consulting him on the futures of her children. Thanks to this royal patronage, he was protected and respected. At the same time, theologians and officials of the church looked at him with caution. Astrology was often considered heretical, and there were always whispers of possible charges. Though he was never formally prosecuted, the threat of the Inquisition hung over him. Financially, he lived in comfort. His second marriage to Anne Ponsard brought wealth, and the sale of his books and his medical practice provided steady income. He was not among the richest men of France, but compared to many of his contemporaries, he lived well. His home in Salon de Provence was spacious, with a study, a laboratory, and a garden. Descriptions of his appearance survive. He was of medium height, with a full dark beard and piercing eyes. He wore the long dark robes of a physician and scholar, and was almost always seen with books or notes in hand. His serious presence and penetrating gaze impressed people and even instilled unease. As for his private life, there are no reliable records of mistresses. Officially, history knows only of his 2 wives. Yet later rumors, especially in the 17th century, claimed that noble women sought him out not only for advice but for more intimate connections. These tales are considered apocryphal, yet they added to the aura of mystery surrounding him. Thus, in France, he was a unique figure, not a ruler, not a general, but a man whose voice was listened to by both peasants and monarchs. He inspired respect, curiosity, and fear, often all at once. Nostradamus is remembered as the author of mysterious prophecies, but his life contained many details rarely mentioned in popular accounts. Beyond his famous centuries, he also published astrological almanacs every year. These were calendars predicting weather, harvests, and key events month by month. They sold widely, bringing him income and popularity among ordinary people. For many, these almanacs were more familiar than his quatrains. He was known for unusual habits. He advised patients not only on medicines but on daily life, how to store grain, how to preserve wine, how to avoid illness through hygiene. For the 16th century, this was strikingly modern. He also practiced small rituals. Some said he used polished brass bowls filled with water, staring into reflections by candlelight. For skeptics, this was concentration. For the superstitious, it was sorcery. Attitudes toward him were deeply divided. Among common townsfolk, many respected him for his courage during the plague, when he treated the sick instead of fleeing. Yet others whispered that he could see death or cast the evil eye. Neighbors were said to cross themselves when they saw him passing. At the same time, there were whispers of danger from the authorities. In 1559, in Toulouse, accusations of sorcery were raised against him. Though the case did not progress, largely thanks to the protection of Catherine de' Medici, it showed how fragile his position was. His habit of writing in deliberately obscure language was likely not just literary style, but also a shield against charges of heresy. Thus, Nostradamus lived in a world where his knowledge seemed both useful and frightening. He was admired as a healer and scholar, but equally feared as a man who might possess powers beyond the natural. Nostradamus was, above all, a physician and a scholar. His contemporaries described him as a serious, disciplined man who lived according to strict order. Each morning he began his work in his study or in the apothecary laboratory of his house in Salon de Provence, where he prepared remedies, dried herbs, and kept instruments. That room, filled with jars and medical tools, is still preserved today as part of his museum. He was known for his devotion to discipline and study. He rose early, spent long hours reading, and filled page after page with notes. He read in Latin, Greek, Italian, and French. His personal library contained works of ancient physicians and philosophers, as well as contemporary scientific texts. To many, he seemed like a living encyclopedia. His approach to health reflected the same scholarly spirit. He avoided heavy foods, preferring vegetables, fruits, and simple grains. He drank wine only diluted with water, insisting that it preserved clarity of thought. He believed that medicine was inseparable from daily routine, that health depended not only on treatment but on how one lived each day. Outwardly, he appeared solemn, dressed in long, dark robes typical of physicians and scholars. He avoided luxury, valued simplicity, and preferred quiet and order in his household. His life resembled that of a researcher, more than that of a mystic. Among ordinary people, attitudes varied. Those who were cured by his remedies praised him as a healer. Others, especially the superstitious, feared him, believing he might see things hidden from others. But the educated and powerful saw in him a man of knowledge. Catherine de' Medici valued his skill in calculations and forecasts, while his colleagues acknowledged him as an innovative practitioner who offered new approaches to treatment. At home, he was strict but caring. He loved to walk in his garden, where he grew both medicinal herbs and exotic plants, and he often spent time with his children there. His eldest son, Caesar, later recalled how their father spoke to them about science, history, and nature, nurturing their curiosity and intellect. Nostradamus was above all a man of learning. His contemporaries noted his seriousness, concentration, and austere way of life. He began his mornings in his study or in the apothecary room of his Salon de Provence home, where he reviewed notes, prepared remedies, and worked with dried herbs. He lived with discipline. He rose early and devoted long hours to reading and writing. Fluent in Latin, Greek, Italian, and French, he studied widely: ancient medicine, philosophy, astronomy, and history. His library was considered one of the richest private collections in the region, and many regarded him as a walking encyclopedia. His personal habits reflected his scholarly outlook. He avoided heavy foods, preferring simple meals of fruits, vegetables, and grains. He drank only watered wine, explaining that this preserved clarity of thought. To him, health was not only a matter of medicine, but also of daily moderation and a balanced life. In appearance, he was dignified and restrained. He wore the long, dark robes of a physician and scholar and favored simplicity over luxury. His household valued order and quiet, more like the home of a researcher than that of a mystic. Among ordinary people, he inspired mixed feelings. Those who benefited from his treatments revered him, while the superstitious feared his penetrating gaze, believing he could see more than others. Yet in the eyes of the educated and powerful, he was first and foremost a physician and thinker. Catherine de' Medici relied on his careful calculations, while fellow physicians respected him as a practitioner who challenged outdated methods. In family life, he was strict, but not harsh. He often spent time in his garden, cultivating herbs and exotic plants, and liked to walk there with his children. His eldest son, Cesar, later wrote that their father spoke with them about science, history, and the natural world, encouraging them to learn and to question. There were rumors that Nostradamus carried an emerald ring, which he regarded as a talisman. People said that the stone helped him see the future. Perhaps it was nothing more than a symbolic gesture, but many believed in the magical power of the jewel. He was deeply interested in astronomical phenomena. In his notes, there are references to comets and eclipses that he observed and connected to future events. His contemporaries saw this as a sign, as though he was reading the sky like a book. A legend claims that he once foretold the place of his own burial. When asked where he wished to be laid to rest, he pointed to the church in Ceylon and said, "Here I shall find peace." And so it came to pass. He was buried there. It was also said that he often spoke to children in images and riddles. Chronicles record that one day he told his young son, "Your hands will write history." Years later, César de Nostradamus indeed became a well-known historiographer. Some believed he had the gift of clairvoyance through dreams. In several letters, he mentioned seeing in images things that had not yet happened. For his contemporaries, this was taken as proof of his prophetic powers, though it is possible these were only metaphors of his imagination. Nostradamus became a legend not simply because he wrote mysterious verses, but because he lived at the intersection of science and wonder. In an age when most physicians relied on bloodletting and charms, he dared to speak of hygiene, clean air, diet, and preventative medicine. For his contemporaries, this seemed like sorcery. What we now recognize as forward-thinking science, they saw as something beyond the ordinary, almost magical. At the same time, he was more than a physician. His passion for astronomy and writing made him a figure larger than life. His almanacs reached thousands of readers, his centuries spread across Europe, and his reputation grew with every reprinted edition. He was not only practicing medicine, he was creating a language of symbols, blending science with poetry, knowledge with mystery. Part of his lasting fame may also have come from his personality. Accounts suggest he was calm yet firm, serious yet capable of speaking with charm. He impressed rulers with his composure, ordinary people with his courage, and scholars with his knowledge. Perhaps he was indeed charismatic, the kind of figure who could inspire trust and fear in equal measure. This duality explains why, while hundreds of other doctors and astrologers of the 16th century have been forgotten, Nostradamus remains vivid. He was both healer and prophet, both scientist and sage. His words outlived him because they were never bound to a single moment. Each generation found in them echoes of its own fears and hopes. His fame has even been compared to that of Grigory Rasputin centuries later. Both men entered history as outsiders who gained influence in royal courts, both surrounded by myths and suspicions. But where Rasputin was remembered for scandal and downfall, Nostradamus left behind a legacy of texts that still live today. We continue to read his verses, make films about him, and search for hidden meanings in his words. Perhaps the real reason for his immortality is not whether his prophecies were true, but that he gave us an eternal mystery, the sense that behind the ordinary world lies another waiting to be understood. Skepticism toward Nostradamus existed already in his lifetime. He was criticized from several sides: theologians, university scholars, and part of the medical community. The theology faculty in Paris, the Sorbonne, viewed astrology with suspicion, considering it a potential threat to dogma. In 1559, in Toulouse, there were attempts to bring charges against him for forbidden practices, but the case never advanced, partly thanks to the protection of Catherine de' Medici and partly because his books contained no direct heretical statements. Nostradamus himself deliberately wrote obscurely, avoiding dates and names, both as a stylistic choice and as a safeguard against church censure. In 1558, a scathing pamphlet appeared by Laurent Vidal titled Declaration of the Abuses, Ignorances, and Seditions of Michel Nostradamus. Its author accused him of meaningless ambiguity, of forcing events to fit his quatrains, and of craving fame. Such texts circulated widely in France. In an age of pamphlet wars, writers competed for readers' attention, and the name of Nostradamus guaranteed it. At Montpellier, where he had once studied, colleagues reproached him for his excessive reliance on herbs and hygiene, and for departing from Galenic practices like bloodletting and elaborate mixtures. There was also debate about his status. Was he speaking strictly as a traditional doctor or as an apothecary experimenting with prevention and lifestyle? Nostradamus promoted ideas of cleanliness, ventilation, and moderation in food, notions that seemed bold for his time. Humanists and chroniclers pointed out that his prophecies were often interpreted retrospectively. Quatrains explained after the events had occurred. They blamed him for the unverifiability of his predictions. Yet his pupils and supporters, including Jean-Aimé de Chavigny, published defenses in which they matched his verses to new political crises. This polemic only increased the circulation of his works. Criticism never destroyed his reputation. On the contrary, scandal fed his popularity. To the royal court, he remained a useful astrologer, to the provinces, a doctor, and to the book market, an author read equally by opponents and admirers. After his death in 1566, Nostradamus did not fade into chronicles. On the contrary, his presence in culture and print only intensified. He was buried in the Church of the Cordeliers in Salon de Provence. Later, after the upheavals of the Revolution, his remains were transferred, and today his tomb is in the Church of Saint-Laurent in Salon. By the 18th century, legends had already formed. One claimed that when his grave was opened by revolutionaries, a medallion inscribed with the year 1793 was found on his chest. Historians doubt the truth of this, but the myth took hold in popular imagination. During his life, he published almanacs and the First Centuries, Lyon 1555, printed by Massé Bonhomme. After his death, new Lion editions appeared, followed by reprints in Antwerp, Geneva, and London. In 1672, Theophilus de Garancière produced the first complete English edition, The True Prophecies or Prognostications of Michel Nostradamus, which brought him onto the pan-European stage. In the 17th century, readers recognized in his quatrains the 30 Years' War and English unrest. In the 18th, the French Revolution and the fall of monarchy. In the 19th, the age of Napoleon and the romantic cult of genius. In the 20th, world wars, disasters, and dictators. In the 21st century, the internet has multiplied his presence. Forums, websites, and videos interpret his verses in light of everything from pandemics to political events. At the same time, scholars created critical editions, analyzing his language and sources. Skeptics emphasized ambiguity and the Barnum effect, vague phrases in which anyone could see themselves. Supporters, on the other hand, insisted on recognizable correspondences and coded messages. His memory also lives on locally. His house in Salon de Provence became a museum, and the town promotes the Nostradamus route, his observatory tower, garden, and study. Traditions still recall the 1564 visit of Charles IX and Catherine de' Medici to his home, adding to the town's aura. The legacy of Nostradamus emerged at the crossroads of three currents: the book market, political mythology, and local memory. His verses have been read for nearly 5 centuries, each generation finding new meanings in old quatrains. It is this capacity for continual reinvention that has made the name of Nostradamus immortal.